Good morning, everybody. So, today I want to talk some about surrender, which is a huge concept in the program and just a big idea in general in terms of spiritual growth outside of addiction as well. It's covered by Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now. I'm going to read some on that. But we hear about surrender a lot in terms of surrendering to the idea that we have the disease of addiction, and also surrendering our lives to a higher power. We hear phrases like "it is what it is" a lot in the program, and for some this might be a little bit hard to swallow because the idea of surrender has negative connotations. We're brought up in a lot of ways to feel like surrendering is a bad thing. You should always fight. You should never surrender. And so we need to add some context around what we're talking about here to make sure it's clear that the idea of surrender does not equal the idea of resigning yourself to a particular situation. There's a big difference, and you can surrender to a situation and still take action to change what's going on. So I'm going to read a little bit and then talk about it some. Tolle says, to some people, surrender may have negative connotations, implying defeat, giving up, failure to rise to the challenges of life, becoming lethargic, and so on. True surrender, however, is something entirely different. It does not mean to passively put up with whatever situation you find yourself in and to do nothing about it, nor does it mean to cease making plans or initiating positive action. Surrender is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to rather than opposing the flow of life. The only place where you can experience the flow of life is in the now, so to surrender is to accept the present moment unconditionally and without reservation. Then later he goes on to say, surrender is a purely inner phenomenon. It does not mean that on the outer level you cannot take action and change the situation. In fact, if it is not the overall situation that you need to accept when you surrender, but just the tiny segment called the now. So he's really talking about the idea of surrendering in the moment and not resisting the moment. And the idea is that it's when we resist the moment that feelings like irritation, anger, self-doubt, self-pity, it's when those feelings arise. That's when we're resisting the moment that we're in. So the example that he gives a little later is if you were stuck in the mud somewhere. What this is saying is that you don't just resign to be stuck in the mud and stay there. You can do something to get out of it. But he's saying that you surrender to the situation in the sense that you don't get upset about where you are at the moment. You accept that. You surrender to that. I am stuck in the mud, and then the next question is, what am I going to do about it? And I think this comes up a lot in our lives, both in recovery and in general, because we find ourselves getting into sticky situations and getting upset about them and getting frustrated and irritated and annoyed and angry. And I've been going through that a lot this week. It's been really, really difficult to deal with certain people at my job this week. And I find myself getting upset and irritated and even forming resentments against some of these people. And I'm not doing as good of a job of just accepting things the way they are and then doing what I need to do to either change them or to just work with what's going on. I'm focused too much on resisting and feeling. In fact, even right before recording this video, I was thinking, oh, if only so and so would do something different, then things would be better. That's the kind of thinking that we want to try to steer away from and surrender to the situation, because I've got no control over what so and so does. Unless I have an opportunity to tactfully share my opinion with them, then I really have no control over what they do. So the thought of, well, if so and so would do something different is in many ways just kind of a useless thought. What I really need to be focused on is what can I do in this situation? So the act of surrender isn't really about just saying, putting your hands up and saying, well, whatever, there's nothing I can do about it. It's more about refocusing your attention and energy on what can you do about it. And in that way, steering clear of forming resentment and irritation and anger to other people, and really focusing on, well, what is it that I can do about this situation? So that's what I'm going to try to do today. Easier said than done. That's why it's something we have to practice and put into practice. You know, when people say that, we often miss the part that, practice is a constant thing. It's not something you can just flick a light switch on and off. It's something that you really have to work at, and I know it's something I've got to work at, and I'll be doing my best today to do that as I deal with these people who are asking for some things at my job that I feel like are a little bit unreasonable. But I need to focus on what can I do, what's the appropriate next step for me, rather than what I think they should be doing differently. And that is where surrender comes in. It's not resigning yourself to a situation. It's not just throwing up your hands and saying, well, whatever. And it's certainly not taking inaction. It's just figuring out what is it that you can do and moving forward from there and really focusing on what's the right thing to do in the moment. So, hope y'all have a wonderful Friday, and I will see you back here tomorrow.